Hello, my name is Dennis Gonzalez, and today I'll be talking about my TicTacToe game, how it runs, and how I created it. The first thing I'd like to talk about is how I created my game. And the first thing I did to create my game was creating the layout. As you can see here, is this. Up here in the menu bar, you have these two options, exit and about the game. If you click exit, you quit. If you click about the game, it'll tell you information about the game, such as how you can win and the two options of game modes. Just below that, I have text welcoming the player to the game, to TicTacToe. Then in the middle, I have a grid of buttons which are used for the board in the game. Then at the bottom, I have 3 buttons: single player, play, and multiplayer, which are clicked throughout the game. If you want to play single player, you click that and you play your game, and this game's a draw. And if you want to play multiplayer, you click this and you play your game, so player X wins. And I created this game using the editor from wxWidgets and CodeBlocks. The first thing I did was create a panel wx frame. Inside the panel, I put a vertical box sizer, as you can see down here, with an orientation vertical, which covers the whole panel. Inside this box sizer at the top, I put another box sizer with static text which says "Welcome to TicTacToe." Then under that, I put a grid sizer with buttons 1 through 9, which I created, which are all the same height and width, which is a width of 75 and a height of 40. And I put them in this grid sizer so they're all organized in the board. Then at the bottom, I have a box sizer, another box sizer with buttons 10, 11, and 12, which are single player, the single player and play and multiplayer buttons. You can see here. Second, these buttons down here. This is a board that's organized with a grid. Now here's the bottom buttons with the box sizer. Up here in the menu bar, you can see here it says exit, and I set it so it can quit, about the game, and when you click it, it tells you about the game. Wrote this, and that's the setup, the layout I created. The next thing I'd like to talk about is how the bottom buttons work, which are down here in my main CPP file. And this is button 11, which is the play button, this one. And it has an if statement inside when you click it, which says that if the text says play, to enable button 10, which is the single player button, to set its label to single player, to disable button 11, which is the play button, then button 12 to enable it. Oh, sorry. And then when you click play, for example, when you click play, this happens, as it says here in the code. Enables this button, and so on. Here in the bottom of this section of code is when you play a game. When you start a game, the text of the play button is changed to play again. And when you finish, if you want to play the game again, then when you click play again, it will check in button 11 if the text says play again. If it does say play again, it will start the game again, and the static text up here says welcome back, as you can see there. The next button I want to talk about is the single player button. The single player button has an if statement checking if the text of the button says single player, and when you click it to change the text up here to say that you picked single player to make your move, and it disables button 10, which is a single player button, changes the text of button 11, the play button, to play again, and disables button 12. It also calls the start function, which I'll explain later, and also sets game equal to 1, which I'll explain in a moment. Down here, for button 12, which is a multiplayer button, it has an if statement that checks if the text of the button says multiplayer, and if that's true and you click it, it says you picked multiplayer and to make your move. And then button 10 is disabled, button 11 is changed to say play again, and button 12 is disabled. And then the start function is called and game is set to 2. Well, now in my main header file is my class TicFrame, which was created when I created my project. And in the private section, I declared all my variables. And the first variable I want to talk about is the game variable, which is set to 0, and it's integer type. This variable is used. Sorry about that. This variable is used in. Second, let me pull this up. This variable is used to check what game mode you're in. For example, here in button 10, as you can see, when you click single player, it says here that it will set game equal to 1. So that's single player. And when game is equal to 1, then for example, when you click one of these buttons, it will only run the code that corresponds to game equals to 1, which would be single, the function single, comp function, and so on. Then if you click the multiplayer button, then game is set to 2, as it says down here. It's set to 2, and when you click a button, that's the only function that's going to be called is multi, because that's the only one in the if statement for game equals 2. And now I explain this code up here at the start of the single player button, which says if game equals 2 to set game equal to 1. So for example, right now my game is set to 2, and let's say I play a game. Player 1 wins, then I click single player, which would mean that I click this button. Then game equals 2, which is what game is set to currently, would be set to game equals 1. And what this does, it allows you to switch the game mode So now instead of running this function, because it was previously set to equals 2, you run these functions because now your game is set to 1. And you play your game and so on. And now here, game is set to 1. So if you click multiplayer, and if game is set to 1, your game will be changed to 2. So basically the opposite will happen as we just did. And instead of the game of the single player functions being ran, the multiplayer function will be ran. And you'll play your game with no troubles. And there you go. The next variable is int clicks equals 0, which is clicks, which is an integer type, and set to 0. This variable, what it does, it keeps track of the amount of clicks a player has. For example, here I have 3 clicks, and it only counts the user's clicks, not the computer's, in single player. In multiplayer, it counts every click. So here it'd be clicks would equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, wait, 9. My apologies. And this is done because, well, as you've probably seen, every button has these functions, single, comp, and multi. But the single function and the multi function increase the clicks. The single function is only used in single player when the user makes their move. As you can see here, when this function is called, clicks is increased by 1. And when you're playing multiplayer, this function is called, which increases clicks by 1. You can see here, it only increases it once. This is for, this top part is for player 1, this bottom part is for player 2. But they take turns, and in total will become 9. And they both use the same thing, same variable. The third variable I created is called comClick of integer type, which is equal to 0. And this variable is used for the computer in single player, which is down here in comp info. Every time this function is called, comClick is set to 1, or increased by 1 actually. So let's say here it'd be comClicks would equal to 1, comClicks equals to 2 here to 3, and here to 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how it works, and it keeps track of the amount of times the computer has gone. And this is then used for up here in the score function as well. Well, the clicks and comClicks function variables are used up here. For example, when you're playing single player, they're both added up, and if modulus 2 equals 1, the player has 1, and if modulus 2 equals 0, the player lost. And if you're playing multiplayer, if clicks modulus 2 equals 1, the first player wins, and if that's false, then the second player wins. And so it's used for that. Then the final variable I created is the score array, which has 9 indexes and is of character type. The array is also filled with empty spaces here, as you can see. And what this variable is used for is to keep track of the score of the table and the positions of each X and O. So it can be found out when a player has won. For example, well, it's mainly used here in the score function and the comp function down here. Oh, and as well in these two. But I'll explain those later. For example, here in the score function, it's used to check if there's an X or an O in a winning spot, such as like a player has won horizontally like this. It checks if that's true in the array, which would be this line up here, and if that's true and game equals 2, it'll go here, and in modulus 2 equals 1, player 1. There you can see. But the score array is mainly used to just keep track of the game and the score. And well, down here in the multifunction is used to enter the X or O into a specific index, same as in the single function and in the comp info function. And the comp function is used for the computer to know what's the best move for it. For example, if it has a move like, well, I think it's better to just explain it here. If the computer has a move like this, then it'll, one second. Well, let's just say it has a move like this, and this is stored into an array. So what the computer does, it sees that here, if it places something here, it'll get a win. And so let's say you don't block the computer and you let the computer have its turn, then it'll place something here and the computer wins. And it's also used to find the best move when the computer can't do any winning moves. For example, you play like this here and so on. The computer uses the information from the array to find out where the best placement of an O would be at. And so, you see, the best placements were here, and it resulted in a draw. And that's pretty much all the score array is used for. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the constructor of the class, which starts up here in the main.cpp file up here in line 71, and contains all this information which was created when the panels, the layouts, and all the buttons were placed into the editor. All this information was created. And down here towards the bottom of the constructor, I made it so buttons 1 through 9 are disabled when the program is first ran or built, and that button 10 and 12 were also disabled. You can see here when you first run the program. Now moving on to the functions. The first function I created was a start function. One second. Sorry. Here's the start function, which, as you can see here, it enables all the board buttons from 1 to 9. It enables them and sets their text to blank spaces. Then buttons 10, 11, and 12 are disabled, and the variables clicks, click are set to 0, and the score array is set to blank spaces again using a for loop. I'll show you an example when this is used. Say you're playing a multiplayer game and you play your game, and player X wins, whatever happens. So then the program finishes and everything's disabled because of the end function, which I'll explain right after. But when you click play again, which is down here, button 11, when you click play again, the start function is called. And if you recall from what I said previously, it'll set everything to blank spaces, enable all the buttons, and disable all the buttons down here. And as you can see, that's what happens. And the same happens when you click single player, and multiplayer. It runs it all. And that's it. The next function I want to talk about is the end function, which is here. And the end function is it's here, sorry. And what the end function does, it disables all the buttons on the board and enables the play button. So what does it do? Let's say you're playing your game and you win. There you go. And once you find a winning way, like when the score function finds that you've won using all these checks, depending on the game you're playing, and if these checks are true and someone's won and you're playing multiplayer or single player, then it'll run the end function, and all these buttons are disabled, and that's it. Basically, it disables all these buttons so you can't change the game after it's finished, and it's just like that. Stops the game. Next function I want to talk about is the score function, which is this one. What the score function does, it checks if an X or an O, or X's and O's are in a specific order in the array, and if they're in a winning order, such as like here, for example, if they're vertical, then that counts as a win. Then the if statement goes through these next checks. For example, here we're playing in multiplayer, so game would equal to 2. And if clicks modulus 2 equals 1, which is when X goes, since that'd be an odd number, which will lead to 1. Sorry. and the score function will check that. If you won, then game equals 2, and it goes to this. If clicks modulus 2 equals 1, which would be player 1's turn, it will set the text up here to say player 1 x1 and call the end function, which will disable all the buttons, and enable button 10, which will allow you to switch game modes and so on. The score function, you can see it works here too. Works there. Here, for example, in this game, it found that there was a winning combination, these three, which would be this one. Then it checks if game equals 1, which is true because we're playing single player. Then it checks if clicks plus click modulus 2 equals 1, which would be when you're playing, the user. If that's true, then it'll do this text, but that's false since currently it equals to this equals to 6, so modulus 2 equals to 0. So it runs this code that sets the label up here to say you lost, calls the end function to disable it all, then enables the button 12, which is the multiplayer button, so you can switch between game modes. The score function is called a lot during the program. It's called in the multi function every time, the single function and the comp info function, which are always called when you click a button, as you can see down here. And I did this so in every move, the score function checks if there's been a winning move, and if that's true, you've won, and if it's not true, the game continues. And I forgot to mention that aside of this if statement that checks if you won, there's this else if that checks if clicks plus click equals 9 or clicks equals 9, which means when the board is full, as for example here, fill the board, this in total would be equal to 9, and so it says this game is a draw up here, calls the end function to stop everything, and if we're doing single player and click plus clicks equals 9, then button 12 is enabled, which is this one, and the same happens when you do it the other way. Let me just get a draw here. This game is a draw. And yeah, it works. Well, it didn't work that time, but I'll fix that. Sorry. And that's it for the score function. The next function I want to talk about is a single function, which is here. The single function has two parameters, which is this parameter, which takes in the button that you enter into there, you type in there, and a number, which is x. And the button is here, like the button you enter here, its label is set to x. Say there, this label is set to x. And then this x is, since we're on button 1, it'd be set to 0 down here on button 1. Down here, let's see, this would be the button, this is the index. And so score 0 would be set to X, and button 1 would be disabled as it's here. Clicks would be increased by 1, and the score function is called. The multi-function, well, I'll first explain the comp info function. The comp info function is very similar in that, now whatever button you enter here, their label is set to O for the computer, and they're disabled. Then whatever index you type in here, which would be connected to a button, for example, let's go to button 2, or no, wait, sorry, the comp info function is used here. But for example, this would say that if 3, 1 second, okay, if 0, which is index 0 equals X, which is button 1, and index 2, which is button 3, equals X, and this is a space, empty, then, so I'm sorry, trying to read, and then it will set button comp info to button 2 and 1, which you see there. This is the second button, and that's the index of the second button. So up here in the comp info, this would be button 2, button 2 with index 1. Here in score 1, it'd be set to O. Button 2 is set to O, as you saw here. Button 2 would be disabled. The text up here is changed to say it's your turn. Comp click is increased by 1, and the score function is called. The next function I want to talk about is the comp function, which is this one. I forgot to mention, all the functions are void or type void, which means they don't return anything. Well, anyways, the comp function is this one, which is very long, and it's supposed to find out the best move for the computer. At first, here, it checks if it has any winning moves, and if it has any winning moves, it's supposed to first click, enter, or I guess click that button. For example, let's say go here, and where is this? 3. Sorry, 1 second. If score 2 is O, which is here, and score 4 sorry, I'm just having a hard time reading. Here, if score 2 is equal to O, and score 4 is equal to O, which is this combination, and score 6 has a open space, and the player doesn't go there, and let's say I go here, then where was it? Here, comp info is set to button 7, which is here, with an index of 6, and then comp info is filled, and when you click the button, this is called, and the score function is called, which checks if the computer has 1, and if it has 1, it tells you lost. And so it does that. It prioritizes winning, and when it can't win, let's say I go here, and my next move is going to be here, which would be this line of code. Then it does that, which here, when this pattern, I put an X here and then X here. When I do that, it fills comp info with button 2 and index 1, which is this button, and so on, and it continues this until the rest of the game, which is all this code. And it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty good. It does pretty well most of the time. And it's the first time I've tried this or done this, so I'm pretty proud of it, though it is quite messy. And well, lastly, the final function is multi, which is up here. Multi, which takes in a button as well, just like single and comp info, takes in a button with an integer m as well. This is a button, this is used for the index, as you can see here. Throughout the game, as I've explained before, the clicks increase in multiplayer no matter whose turn it is. So right now it'd be 2, and say a second. Okay, I'm sorry, one second. So if clicks modulus 2 equals 0, the button, whichever one you click, is set, its label is set to X, and so then that button is disabled. The static text is changed to say player 2's turn. Then the integer put here is inputted here and changes that to X. So for example, down here, say you're playing a multiplayer game, if buttons equals 2, if multi, well, this would be if you enter, if you click this button, 5 and 4, button 5, index 4, then you go up here, this is button 5, this is 4, then you check if clicks modulus 2 equals 0, and if else, you go through this process. But if this is true, the button 5 is set to X, and button 5 is disabled. The static text up here is changed to say player 2's turn, and we said that up here would be an index of 4 that would be entered into here. The score at index 4 would be changed to X. Then clicks would be increased by 1. Then the score function would be called. And if this is not true, which is if else, then that same button 5, its label changed to O is disabled, the text is changed to say player one's turn, one's turn, then the index of 4 that we set up here would be set to O, clicks would be increased by 1, and the score function would be called. And that's pretty much it. Up here in the score function, not sure if I went over this, or this the if and else if, with clicks and clicks modulus 2 equals 1, tells the player they want, and so on and so on. And that's everything about my TicTacToe game and how it works. I worked really hard on this project. It's not perfect, but something I'm proud of and happy I got the chance to create something like this. It was a lot of hard work and really fun to create, and for sure in the future I'll do more. Yeah, and forgot to say that each button is, it basically calls the same. If game equals 1, the single and count functions are called. If game equals 2, the multi function is called at that button. Same with a single one, and so on. It's the same for every board button. And that's basically it. But yeah, it was a fun project to work on. It is not perfect, but something I enjoyed doing, and I can't wait to do more in the future. Thank you. That's all. Thank you for your time. Bye.